You talk a lot, or you've posted content recently
Mm-hmm.
about AI, and how that has changed kind of the ecosystem within your industry, right?
Here
With
it
coding
comes,
and
guys.
everything,
Here it
right? Yeah,
comes.
we're gonna talk about it. So we waited till the end, right?
I love it.
Gotta
I
bring
love
it
it.
up. But it's relevant because it kind of reminds me a little bit of like those 14-hour days, all the Monster that you drank, all the coffee that you drank, and kind of like, okay, are people still going to need to go through that, right?
Yeah.
Are they still going to, when they start this business, are they still going to need that experience some ways? What's some of your thoughts on the changes with AI in your industry, and what are you excited about the most in that
So
particular?
I'm very excited about it. So I've been talking about AI for a long time. Like I did a talk about AI, I think it was like 2017 or 2018, to the Chamber of Commerce, and like they hated it. They just hated it because there was a bunch of older guys, and one of them on his way out was like, I hope I'm dead before that ever happens. I was like, wow, that was really poorly received.
Yeah.
But I've been thinking about it for a long time, like way before it was popular to think about. As soon as I heard about it, I was like, whoa, AI and quantum computing, when those two things converge, we're going to have a whole different world. I am currently very, very excited about AI, and I have some plans. I have some very clear, really clear big plans. I have a really big and very clear and detailed vision for where I'm going in the next 5 years. It is somewhat under wraps, but I'm very excited about it.
Good.
That being said, yes, AI presents a huge challenge. I have a lot of thoughts on AI in general. Right now, what AI is particularly good at is taking a format of output, right? If you give it a format, like I'd like the output in this format, like a table that looks like this, or a thing that looks like this, or whatever. And then taking an array of scattered data or whatever, and like sort of getting it to conform in the most probabilistically correct way possible, right? Now, when most people are talking about AI, we're talking about like popular level AI, right? Which is like LLMs, like ChatGPT and stuff like that, because ChatGPT came on the scene and basically made AI like accessible to use for the average person, right? AI was a thing way before that, but it just became popular level and available and usable by people at scale. So AI does that, but also I think what's interesting is like a lot of people are like, oh, it's just like a stochastic parrot or whatever, right? It's just a exactly what I just said, where it just like will output a format that's probabilistically the most. Well, that's not necessarily true, because it is doing a really great job of mimicking and following patterns. And one of those patterns is like chains of reasoning, right? That's a thing that AI, researchers and programmers have done a pretty good job of implementing now. If you look at like ChatGPT, you can see the reasoning chain and all that. DeepSeek was one of the early LLMs that introduced that or whatever, or that sort of like showed it. So Grok does that. Like they're all doing that now. And so reasoning can sort of be emulated, right? And people are like, oh, well, AI will never be able to like create a creative masterpiece that's truly original, right? And I kind of go, well, the creative process is a process, right? And a machine, an AI can look at a process and it can copy it, right? And the process of coming up with new processes is a process, right? So it's totally false that it's not going to be able to do all these things. It is going to be able to do all these things, and it will keep progressing. There's nothing we're going to do about that. So there are some good things and some bad things that'll come out of that, right? I like to think that it's going to be a really great thing long term, but I do think it's going to be a little hard for us as a society in the short term, because it's the sort of thing where it's like AI can take anything that that you want, any particular output, and it can sort of grab all this stuff and get it to that output, right? And so much of people's jobs is that, right? Now for me, because I'm always just trying to get to this end outcome or whatever, right? Like I'm really excited about that. I'm like, sweet, this thing can like do my spreadsheets faster. Awesome. This thing can like, write some starter copy that I can use faster. Sweet. This thing can write part of this program faster for me. Amazing. I love it, but a lot of jobs have had so much stability because there is that sort of predictable, like, hey, this is going to take 30 hours. Can you slot it in this week? Oh, great. Now you can work, 6-7 hours a day on it and you'll be able to get it done and still have a little margin time and things like that. Like that sort of like planning out your work time and like, that sort of deep work that you're working on for a long period of time. It's just, sort of becoming less common, which I think has a mental health impact on people because they just don't have that like steady work to work on. And the work is so messy, I don't think there's going to be less work. I don't. I think that's a really poor conception of what work is.
That's interesting. And sorry, but you mentioned a couple of different things about like messy work, less structure, things like that. And it kind of gets back into a little bit of your background and your history. You kind of mentioned, hey, I'm not, don't jump into things as the most organized situation.
Yeah, totally.
And it reminds me a little bit about myself in some scenarios as well. And like, as I think about AI and how I've been able to leverage it, it's like, wait a minute. I historically like bounce around a little bit.
Yep.
I try to plan out, but still I get onto this thing, a little bit of ADHD when it comes to the way I get things done. Right. But like when it comes to leveraging AI, I can get something started, whether I'm, having deep research or something, get something started. And then I'm moving on to the next thing. Once it's done, then I plug it in and I like thrive in that, right?
Totally.
It like works really well for me, but I can see how someone's like going to sit there and wait for this to get done or like, they're going to need that structure. And I hadn't thought about that aspect of it before where certain types of people might thrive in that little more chaotic scheduling of work than what you talked about with the 30 hours.
Yep. Well, and I think, so there is a huge societal impact of that, right? I don't think that AI is going to mean like less work or whatever, right? Because the main reason I say that is because people have infinite ideas, right? People just have so many ideas that they want to try and things that they want to do and stuff that they want to build and all that. And so let's say that the average, this is an example I've used, right? So I took our sales guy out to the window of our building and I said, look out there. How many businesses can you get to in in 15 minutes? He's like, oh, I don't know, like 1,500 maybe. Like there's so many businesses out there. And I said, okay, cool. How many of them can afford to build a software? Like a real full-fledged software is like $100,000 or $200,000, right? It's expensive. There's a big barrier of entry. It takes a long time to like figure it all out and get it. He's like, out of those ones out there, I don't know, like 50, 20, and so I'm like, okay, cool. So once, let's say software can be done for $5,000 or like $3,000. And we can just do it a lot faster and you just do the project management steps in between to get it done instead of like having, 100 hours that you have to spend working on code. How many businesses are now interested in building a software? And he's like, oh my gosh, like 1,500. Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. So that's one thing that happens, right? Is like all of a sudden everybody's got this democratized chance of competing and trying their idea, right? And I think that's a cool thing in a lot of ways because the barrier of entry becomes lower. But there is also so there is what I call the value cycle of tech, right? This basically what happens is tech comes in and it makes a promise, and that's the sales of tech and Silicon Valley and all that. The sales message is, hey, you can do the same thing other people do, get the same results in less time, right? And you're going to deliver the same value that they deliver. You're going to get compensated the same way that they get compensated. You're going to get respected the same way they get respected. But with my tool, you can do it in less time, right? And so people are inherently attracted to things that take effort, right? People are attracted to fit people. It's really hard to be fit. There's a lot of food around that's really interested that I'm really interested in eating, and there's a lot of it's really hard to get to the gym and make the time. It's really hard to push out that last rep, and it's really hard to make time to spend on the treadmill and all that, right? Fitness is really hard. People are attracted to people with money, right? It's hard to get money. It's hard to get out there and negotiate all the deals and work on it and all that. Mm. People are attracted to really great soccer players. It's really hard to, kick a ball around a bunch of people who are trying to keep you from kicking the ball around them and then score. All those things are really hard to do, which is why we inherently value them. And so tech comes in, makes this promise. That's the sale, right? They're like, oh, you can do the hard thing and you can get the respect and you can get the value. But it's going to be easy for you because of this tool. And for the early adopters, that's actually true, right? They do come in and they are like, whoa, the first college students to ever figure out that they could just have ChatGPT write their essay. Yeah, they were shredding through essays. But then what ends up happening is our recognition, once it becomes more commonplace, is once that resource becomes more commonplace and everybody has ChatGPT and everybody knows about ChatGPT, the value perception goes down, mm-hmm. right? Because the economy doesn't work based on value. This is a huge problem with West Michigan has a huge problem recognizing this. The economy of the world does not work on value. It works on perceived value. Mm-hmm. And so the perceived value, once we realize that something is easy, goes down, right? So the essay that you're like, oh, I would pay you $100 for that essay. Now I'll pay you $1 for that essay, So that's the problem. That's the problem, is that we are in this continual value cycle, right? And a lot of people are like, oh, well, I'll just be the early adopter. It's hard to be an early adopter. It's hard to always be on top of the new technologies and always be creating more value with new technologies first. It's just as hard to do that as it is to just get good at what's already there and work really hard at that within the standard conventions of how things are used. It's just hard, no matter how you slice it. Mm. And the more we try to speed up by getting ahead and all that sort of thing, the more that becomes ubiquitous. And the more that the cycle just keeps going, that's what the cycle of tech does. And so just like, cars replace buggies and all that, I think AI is going to replace stuff. So that's a huge thing that's going to happen.
Yeah. And what you brought to light too is a lot of the change of perceived value and what people are going to see as important and valuable today, or what they see as important and valuable today in 5-10 years are going to be seen different in different light.
Yes.
Different types of skills are going to be more important. And as you take a snapshot in time today and mm-hmm. think about those that are going through their journey of entrepreneurship or their journey of business leaderships, or their maybe even an employee just trying to figure out their way towards success, and under their definition, are there some things that they could leverage AI in their scenario today to help them in a way that I think back to you when you were young, you picked up a book, right?
Yep.
And you read this book and you said, okay, here's some things that I need to know to, take this next step. Mm-hmm. And, maybe there's a situation where they're not going to be picking up the book, but they're going to be getting into ChatGPT or something like that.
Yeah. I would say a few things. I actually think one of the number one skills to learn is just social skills. And here's the reason for that. That's the one thing that AI cannot replace. Have you noticed that if you, there have been so many reminder apps built and scheduling apps built and organize your calendar for you, AI apps built and everything. And people's they haven't fixed the problem of people not knowing what they're supposed to be working on, or forgetting to work on stuff. None of them have fixed the problem. You have the most advanced calendar app that the world has ever developed on your phone right now, and you still forget stuff and don't get stuff done and miss deadlines and all that stuff, right? Like it's just not a problem that can fully be solved by those sorts of things. But people perform in a lot of cases based on social responsiveness, right? So if you set a meeting with me, we set a meeting today, right? I showed up to that meeting because I knew that there was another person there. I have respect for that person. I'm thinking about the fact that they're going to be there. They're going to be expecting me. I don't want them to be disappointed in me. I'm stressed about being late, all that sort of thing, because of that social accountability. Social accountability drives so many projects. It drives so many ideas, all that sort of thing. If a bot had been waiting for me here, I wouldn't show up. I would have been like, I'm sorry, I got to get these proposals done. I wouldn't be here. And so a lot of project managers use social accountability, right? And developers get frustrated with that, right? They're like, we don't need a meeting for this. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you get in a meeting, and not only do you figure some stuff out in the meeting, but also you have that social accountability of like, oh man, Wednesday's coming around. We have the team meeting. Like, I better get my stuff together before then. It really drives a lot of productivity, and people just do not respect or care about bots in the same way. And so I would say, social skills are just as important in the post AI age, because people care about people. People are not out there watching battle bots. People are out there watching the Super Bowl because they care about the story, right? And so being able to tell a good story, being able to network, being able to connect with people, being able to solve problems with people, all of those social skills are just as important, if not more important, because the rest of the work, the value is going down, right? That's still very important. The other thing I will say is definitely just learning to use the tools and figuring out what they can do, what they can't do, what the edge cases are, being good at putting the tools together. Like, what if I use, ChatGPT to generate a prompt for Midjourney and things like that, right? Like being able to mess with the tools to see what's available, that is really, really important. So
no, and thanks for unpacking that. And
Yeah.
I've heard you talk about social accountability before, and even the example of fitness and
Yeah.
tying those together about having a fitness coach. I think about that even in my personal or professional life with hiring a business coach. It's the same
Totally.
thing. Like, because I have to meet with the business coach every week, like I'm going to do the things. Otherwise that business coach is no longer going to be my business coach,
Yes.
right? He's got certain standards, you're out, right?
Totally.
So in those types of holding standards and doing it in a personal way where it is a community, or you're, have that social accountability, is an incredible skill. I'm definitely going to have to figure out how to improve upon mine going forward. So thanks for unpacking that a little bit.
Yeah. The other thing I will say is that I think there's sort of this there's this expectation of there to be a call to action, right? Like, what's the call to action to how do we use AI? How do we leverage AI and all that, right? It's either going to be one of two things. Either standards are going to develop and we're going to start to follow them, right? So for instance, a standard that is developing with AI is you put a chatbot on your site. The chatbot has an AI built in. It's usually built on OpenAI or its API or something like that. And it has a bunch of information about your company so it can answer common questions. Mm-hmm. You keep that database up to date, and then it passes you off to a human if there's trouble. That's an AI standard that's emerging, right? That everyone's starting to kind of copy and emulate. You can do that with your business pretty easily, mm-hmm. and there you go. But so there's things that are emerging as business standards or ways of doing things that you can implement. But most of what AI is going to do is yet to be determined, right? And we have as little ability to conceptualize and visualize that as a 16th century peasant has of imagining updating an SSL certificate on your iPhone, right? There's so many layers of abstraction that exist because of the digital world, and that those layers of abstraction are going to go so much further than we can imagine right now. So I have no way of telling you what's coming. I have no way of predicting it. I have no way of understanding it. It is going to be so abstracted out that there's no way of knowing.
But that excites you, right? And you have the opportunity to step into that as something like, hey, this is something I'm afraid of, just kind of back to some of the themes throughout the conversation. This is something that, I'm afraid of. I'm just going to ignore it or push it aside and pretend like it's not there. This is something that we need to learn, test. It's not always going to work right the first time. We're going to learn what didn't work more than maybe what did work. And that's maybe some encouragement from your story when it comes to tying things together there of get in, play with, test, and understand.
Yeah. Well, I think so there's definitely the doomsday scenarios with AI, right? And I have spent a lot of time panicking and being depressed about those doomsday scenarios and all that. And I actually wrote out what are my options, right? My option is basically either someone's going to achieve AGI, right? Someone will. AGI means, to me, everybody's got a different definition, but to me, AGI means an artificial general intelligence that is more intelligent than any human alive on any subject, that can do a better job at any intellectual task than any human. I don't care about consciousness. I don't care about sentience, because I just don't think those are definable. That's not definable. So I don't care whether it's sentient or not. If it acts like a duck and walks like a duck, it's a duck. I don't care. But we will get AGI. That's just the reality, right? Will people care about that bot and its opinions and all that as much as other people? I don't think so, because I think biologically we're hardwired to care about humans. But I've thought okay, there's a lot of disaster scenarios with AGI, right? It decides to take everything over and kills us all. It gets bored with us and just leaves and goes to outer space. And then we're like, oh, we have no tech. See ya. It gets controlled maybe by a single entity that probably will be evil with all the absolute power that corrupts them or whatever, right? Or it just there's all these doomsday scenarios, and I've spent a lot of time agonizing about those things, right? And being really afraid of that. And I realized okay, well, what can I control? So nuclear weapons we thought the world was going to be destroyed, right? But guess what? I can't believe this happened, but we all kind of have come to an agreement on safety standards. We've formed alliances and treaties, and I'm alive. I'm not worried about it at this particular moment, which is pretty cool. So I think the same thing could happen with AGI. It might not. I might die. I can't control that. And so I've mapped out my options. I'm like, okay, either I am going to go try to develop an AI, and I'm going to have to go back into this building world where I'm okay, now I'm doing 20-hour days and just trying to hustle through this and catch up with Sam and Elon and Google and Zuck and all that, and pass them. And it's going to take the rest of my life, and I'm going to be thrown 100% into that. It's going to pretty much take over all my time. So I could do that. I could. I might not succeed. I probably won't, because I have so many resources, but I could. Mm-hmm. Or I could go work for one of these companies, right? And say okay, my goal is to get in and be one of the top AI researchers at I wouldn't go to Facebook, but who knows, OpenAI or something. Yeah. I could do that, I guess. I don't pretend that they're just going to take me, right? But if I really put my mind to that goal, I do believe I could do that. Mm-hmm. But then, or I could go and be depressed and become a shell of a person who's just waiting for the AI apocalypse to destroy me. Or I could go and do interesting and cool things with people around me using AI. And so I kind of look at those options, and I'm like, okay, option one, I'm not guaranteed to win the AI race, A lot of people are trying to do that. Probably won't win it, but maybe I will. And even if I do, I might not have control of the AI, right? It might still kill me. Number two, I could go and work for these companies, but I certainly won't have control once I win, right? Like even if I help them win, I won't have control. I have to pick the right company. How do I know they're not a snake? I don't know. So I might still get killed by the AI, right? I could be depressed and then I spend the rest of my life miserable. That sounds awful. So my option is really, I've laid all this out. I'm like, my option is to make cool things with it and try to impact people's lives in great ways and believe that it's going to be this sort of thing like nuclear weapons where we stave off the danger and we get nuclear power and it's awesome, you know, and there will be some casualties, but it's going to be amazing and it'll be a better future. Like if we can get the nuclear energy future right, oh my gosh, our world's going to be so much greater. And I have a vision for that greater world, and I have a vision for the greater world with AI as well. So that's what I plan on doing. That was a
no, and I love the background and the way that you broke down how you chose positivity throughout that. You know, you still have multiple different options, but you chose to make a positive impact in something that you can have a little bit more control over, but yet takes you into the space that you want to be at into the future. And that is a testament to some of your story and some of the things that you've learned throughout, you know, just even building catapults and trying trial with error, right? Okay, that didn't work. Totally. That didn't work. Now I know how to break down a problem and really attack the right solution the way that I want. And that leads me to my final question, I guess, for you today is as you've thought about your story, excuse me, as you thought about your story, your background, kind of what's gotten you to where you are today, how has that shaped your definition of success a little bit? And what is your definition of success?
Okay. So my definition of success is living a life that you enjoy living with people who you enjoy being with. And I think that success ultimately means two things. One, having a vision and moving towards it consistently, right? Having a vision you're excited about and moving toward it consistently. And it means pivoting as needed, right? And it's actually the process of doing that is so fun and so engaging. It's not the result of that, right? So I was just as successful by that definition when I was sleeping on a mattress on the floor and having spiders crawl over my head. And I was excited about what I was doing. I felt energy as like when I work on these bigger initiatives in a more comfortable setting. Today, I'm just as successful now, right? So it's always going to change, right? Like I could lose everything tomorrow and have to start over, but I could have just as fun a day, you know?
I love it. Yeah.
So I think there's that. I definitely think that the way we frame things is everything, right? Let's say you get together with somebody and it's a new relationship, you know, and they're like, oh, do you mind taking out the trash for me? You're like, take out the trash. Yes, I can, you know, and, you know, then you're with them for, 5 years or whatever. And they're like, do you mind taking out the trash? And you're like, fine, whatever, you know, like, okay, sure. I got to do this, you know, like it's the same circumstance, but it's two totally different mindsets. And so for me, I think it's all about that mindset of like, this is fun. This is really fun. And this is really engaging. And that is what I think, knowing that you are going to be able to pivot and adjust and ask for help when you need it. Other people are going to be around for you, like having a support system, all that sort of thing. I like the quote of like, a bird on a branch feels secure, not because it has faith in the branch, but because it has faith in its wings. And so I think that's really how I see it when I go into this future of like, I don't know if this branch is going to snap, but I trust in my wings. I trust that I'm going to be there. I'm going to be able to figure out how to fly. And I also know that I feel a lot of vision and energy being there for other people, because I know as the world gets more uncertain, people feel more fear and more anxiety, right? And when I felt fear and anxiety, people were there for me. They were. And I'm very excited to, like, as we walk into a world with uncertainty, fear, anxiety, you know, a lot of this whole AI discussion is like, oh no, what if there are no problems for us to solve anymore? We're going to have a lot of problems. When we have abundance, it creates a lack of purpose. When we have abundance, it creates an uncertainty of which option you should pick. It creates this just sense of like everything everywhere all at onceness that you can't untangle. And I'm very excited to be there for people in the middle of that. So I'm pretty pumped about it.
I love that choice of mindset and the idea that you have faith in the next steps, even though you don't know what it might bring, but you can uncover it and tackle it. So thank you so much for coming on the Engineered Success podcast. It's been amazing having you here. And I know that there's been a lot of insights that you've dropped that are going to help a lot of people throughout their journey, not just through homeschooling and through maybe mission work, but also through AI and how to tackle that, and having the right thoughts about how they can tackle that problem for themselves. So thank you so much for being on, and it's been great having you here.
Thank you.